But so Barry's first question, hopefully you can hear me, is where did it? There are 2 post processors. Which one do you recommend? What are you guys using for CAD software? Have you chosen anything yet? Josh, I'm guessing you're going to use Fusion, right?
I think I'm just going to use Fusion because that's what I know.
Yeah. I have zero ability in Fusion. Zero. I cannot help you with that at all.
Yeah, see, I used I'm a software engineer, so I've been doing this stuff forever. I've used Adobe Illustrator back to Adobe Illustrator 2, I think, which was 92, like a long time.
Yeah.
So the software is not a big deal, but my biggest question / concern, and I think your input would come in here, is going from a design through the processor to the machine. Like, there's so many different pieces of software, and the Onefinity supports everything. So the question becomes, which one do I go with? And I know some of them cost money, right? VCarve Pro costs what, $600?
Yeah, it's expensive. I mean, that's really, if you're already in Fusion, I'd stay in Fusion.
Okay.
That's my thought. It can do, from what I've seen, can do a lot more than Vectric can. From my perspective, Fusion is a lot more difficult to start learning. Vectric, since I really started out, I started on easel for a brief amount of time, which is like the kids version of design software. And then I went to Carbide Create. And I still use Tinkercad for a lot of 3D printing stuff. That thing's amazing. But then I went to Carbide Create, and Carbide Create is like a really, really dumb version of Vectric software. So it was a natural progression for me, and that's why I chose it. But if I could go back in time, and that was before I did any 3D printing. So if I can go back in time, I would have learned Fusion. And because I can't use Vectric with 3D printing. I can only use it with carving stuff.
So now you're split between 2 or 3 different pieces of software?
Yes. I use Tinkercad for almost everything I design on 3D printing. And then I use Vectric. Hey, Barry. We can see Barry.
I'm sorry.
Hey, there. We can hear you too. Good. All right, I'm going to remove this one. So there's just 4 of us. There we go. So, yeah. So I use Vectric for that. And that's pretty much how I am. Craig, have you chosen a...
As of right now, I'm using Carbide Create.
Okay.
We're all Mac here, so we're kind of more limited in software choices. So
yeah.
I think it's Carbide or potentially Fusion, right?
Fusion, yeah.
That's the other reason why I use Fusion.
Yeah. Oh, you're Mac too? Okay. Barry, you're asking about the post processor. I'm guessing you have Vectric, or that was what
Yeah, I have Vectric Pro.
Vectric Pro. Okay, yeah. So there's 2 for Vectric, anyways, to answer Barry's questions. There's 2, and I'm kind of working with them to figure out which one is best. And there's a preference I like, and then there's a preference that the owner, Mark, likes, and we're not on the same page. They added a button on the software to probe Z and probe XYZ. And then the post processor that he likes is where it asks, before it runs in the software, it asks to probe every time you're going to run a toolpath. I would prefer to touch the button and do it when I want it rather than when the machine thinks it wants it. So that's why there's 2 on the software, or they uploaded 2. One that says with probe means that the machine is going to ask and automatically probe between every toolpath. The other one that doesn't have the probe, probing will still work. It just doesn't ask it for every time. You have to push the button manually between toolpaths.
When that probes, that you have the option to do just X or Z.
Yeah, you have two options. You have X and X, Y, and Z, or just Z. And if I can, Josh, do you know how I can show my computer screen?
Sure. Bottom center of your screen. Are you full screen or not?
I'm not. I'm windowed, but it's just
the bottom center of your screen, share screen. And then pick, so you either share your desktop, which shares your entire desktop. So if you have like icons all over your desktop, people will see that. Or pick the application you want to share.
Okay, let me open.
You want to share your web browser, pick the
Yeah.
web browser with your current tab.
I have
You pick the
screen,
browser, like you pick
whiteboard,
Chrome,
and
it'll share Chrome, and then you'll be able to switch tabs and we'll see it.
okay. Well, I have screen, so let me hit that. Do you see my
There you
screen
go.
now?
Yeah, so we're seeing everything, including your desktop.
Okay, that's fine.
The downside with that is since you have such a wide desktop,
Yeah.
it's everything's really small. So if you cancel the share screen and then share screen to your Google window, it'll only share your Google window.
Here we go. There we go.
That'll look a little bit better.
Is that better?
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
When you share your screen, just for reference, there's about a 1 to 2 second delay between what you do on the screen and what we see.
Okay. All right. So I have connected, and this is totally optional, the controller to my Wi-Fi network. You do not have to do that. I just have Wi-Fi in the shop, and it makes it way, way easier because I never have to use a USB to like put files on the thing. I could just stay at my computer after I'm done and just poof, right over to it. So I totally suggest doing that if you can, if you have Wi-Fi or an Ethernet plug. So what you will do is if you're connected like that, you'll type in, it gives you an IP address. This is, so you can see the screen. This is literally what you would see on the little monitor that's connected. Same exact thing. So at the top left, you can see where it says CNC controller. It has the 192.168.1.143 MyersWoodshop.com. Y'all see that part?
Yep.
Okay. So the www.myerswoodshop.com, that's my SSID for my Wi-Fi. You have to know that. And it has to be a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi to connect.
Interesting.
Do you have that, Barry? Do you know all about that?
Yeah, it's a dual band. I have 245.
Okay. Good. Okay, good. And if these questions are beneath you, I'm sorry. I don't know where everybody is.
No problem.
So yeah, so you have to type that in, and then it'll restart itself, and if you did it correctly, it'll give an IP address, and this will show on your screen, the little tablet screen. So I just come over to the computer and I type that IP address in, and it pops up the controller on the screen too. So the three little thing on the side, it like makes the settings fly out. You'd go to, if you're on the little touchscreen to get to the Wi-Fi to add yourself, you click on admin and then network. And initially it'll be set to disabled. You'll click client, and then you'll type in your SSID and then type in your password and hit set, and it'll restart itself. It won't let you know if it's successfully connected. The only way to know is if when it restarts, it comes up with your IP address.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So I don't remember what the question was to make me get to here, but
It was the probing of
probing, yes, yeah. So you can see there's probe X, Y, and Z, and then there's probe Z.
Okay.
So there's two buttons, and X, Y, and Z will do all 3 points, and Z will just do the top.
So when you have the other post processor that it prompts you, you have the option to do full X, Y, Z or just Z.
The other one, when it prompts you, will just prompt for Z. I'm fairly certain. It'll just do Z. So you'll need to set home for X and Y before you start anything anyways. So that's why I think that prompt is kind of a redundant thing, because you have to do it first when you first start the program anyways, because it won't do X and Y. It'll only do Z. So, and for Josh and Craig, you guys probably don't know what X and Y and Z. Well, Josh, you might, because 3D printers will home itself. It's very similar to that. But
Yeah,
you're gonna have
to send files to my 3D printer the same way.
Okay, cool. But
I have an Astro box connected to my 3D printer, so when I send files, I just do it straight from Fusion.
Gotcha.
To the 3D printer.
So when you start something, when you turn the controller on, it doesn't know where the bit is at, and you have to go manually set it. And that's what what setting 0 is. You're telling the computer, okay, this is where the bit is and where we're going to start.
Well, at some point, it's some consideration, right? It's not necessarily where it knows where the machine is, but it doesn't know how big the bit is. So based on your bit, you need to tell where the bit is. So it knows the machine is left, right, because it has a position.
That's sort of. It'll know the bit when you 0 Z, but when you 0 X and Y, it'll know where the router is, I guess, on the machine. But for the machine to know where it is, you have to hit this little home. I'm pointing to the screen like you can see that. You have to hit the home button.
We can see your mouse also.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you have to hit the home button here. So when you hit this button, the machine will home itself. It'll move itself to the extremes on the front left and the highest on the Z. And that'll know, once it does that, it'll be like, okay, this is how far I can travel. Because if you don't do that, it's going to try to run off the rail and just go forever because it doesn't know its limits. So like the big joke in the forum was, does it have limit switches? It doesn't, but you always have to click this home button for it. Like the very first thing you do, turn it on. Once it's booted up, hit the home button and let it home all the accesses. And then you can jog it around without it trying to fly off. You don't have to do this. If you're not going to jog it and move it, you could just move it wherever and 0 Z, X, Y, and Z, and it'll carve. But if you want to jog it around and not grind the motors and stuff, homing is how it goes. With the Shapeoko, when you turn it on, it gives you a prompt before you can do anything. It says initialize machine, and it literally is doing the homing process. I don't know if the X-Carve does it. I think Two Moose told me it doesn't do that, and you have to push a button. So that's what these home buttons are here. So the top one will home all 3 at one shot, and then you can see the X column. If you click that, it would just home X. If you click the Y column, it'll do Y, and then Z will do Z. So that's what those buttons are over there. This 0 here with a line through it, that's zeroing. So once you move the bit to where you want it to go and start, like I programmed this to start right here. If you move it over to there, you would hit these 0 buttons and do the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, so home is relative to the machine, 0 is relative to the piece you're going to carve.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Home is always in the
front.
You can set home wherever you want though, right?
No, when it homes, it'll always be the front left. Yeah. 0 is you can set wherever you want it.
Right, and that's 0 for the piece.
Well, yes, that's where you want it to be.
0 to the workpiece.
Yeah, that's where you want it to be. Yeah. And then this gear here, if you set, you can manually set the X position with a number. Or if we homed one of these, I'll home 0 or I'll home Z, which you can't see. It's homed. If you click this, you can click unhome. So if for some reason it didn't home correctly or something, you would click unhome. It would go away, and then you'd click home again, and then it homes. So that's what these buttons will do, this gear. If for some reason something was jacked up, just click it and click unhome, and then you'll be good. When you home the whole machine, let me home X, make sure that nothing is in the way. So when you home X and Y, it will turn green and say homed. Z will be yellow and say over. That's always the case. It's not a wrong thing. It just it doesn't know where the bit is. It doesn't know how long the bit is. So it's going to say over until you set 0. Like let's say if I moved it a little bit and I set 0 here and I loaded a file, it would change it to green and say you're good. So just some people that have gotten the machine and set it up are like, something's wrong, my Z is yellow. There's nothing wrong with it. That's totally normal. When it goes red, then something is wrong because these will turn red. If you load a file that's too big for the machine, that's like the machine is 32 by 32. So if you load a 36 by 36 file and it was homed, all these would show up, I think red, saying over, or maybe some sort of error. So does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. This on the left side panel, this is your jogging. So if you want to move the gantry back to the back of the machine, you would push Y plus. Y minus moves it forward. X plus moves it to the right. X minus moves it to the left.
Yep.
And then you have the 0.1, 1, 10, 100. These are in millimeters because I have my units right here set to metric. If I change it to imperial, everything just changed to the United States, and it changes, how far you're going to move it. If I click 10 and move it to the right, you can see it move 10 because we're at 2 millimeters. Now we're at 12. If you click, let's say I zero everything here. So if I click this, I don't know, cannot set position during MIDI. I don't know what that means. I haven't homed this. But if I zero here and I want to return to 0, you hit this middle button. I don't know if you could hear the machine, but it just moved back to wherever I clicked 0. That's for the X and the Y. And then if the Z, you set 0, you click Z0, and it'll return to the 0 point on that. It's hard to know what the machine is doing when it's behind me when I'm clicking things. So down below here, this is your, where you're going to upload a file. So when you're on the computer and you want to upload a file, I'll just click this folder button, and it'll search my computer for files. And I have that Steelers thing I cut yesterday. I just clicked it, and now it's loading it automatically to the controller. I didn't have to get up and put a USB stick in it. If you wanted to, you could just put that file on a USB stick and plug it in, and then on the touch screen, you'd touch the folder, and it would search from within the controller or the USB stick, and you'd load it that way. But it's just, for me, it's so much faster to do it and easier on a computer when I'm networked. So, but you can see.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is there any storage on the controller itself, or is it always just one
that.
all the time?
There's storage on the controller. I think it's a 32 gigabyte SD card, and the software probably uses maybe 2 or 3 gigabytes. So you're going to hold a ton of G code on there, and it saves it all too. It is just in this drop down. It'll save it.
G-code files are relatively small.
Yeah. What's this G code file? The Steelers one I did was 244 kilobytes. So I could hold like 1 billion of the Steelers G code file.
Like 3D printing, I know the 3D printing files, I've seen files get up to like 2 or 3 megabytes.
Yeah.
But that's just because it's a 15-hour print. You know what I mean? Like,
right. So I have seen somebody sent a file to me saying, "Hey, can you get this to load on the Shapeoko?" And it was the most intricate dragon 3D cut thing I have ever seen. And oh, you know what? I wonder if other people are trying to join. Hold on, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. No, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
What you do, Ben, is click the chat window and keep the participants window. If you click participants, it'll keep it up on your screen like in a floating layer, and just kind of put it off on the side.
Oh, okay.
It'll be there even if you're sharing. So you'll see if someone's trying to join.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think the file was 45 megabytes, and it was so slow to a crawl that Vectric, I couldn't open it on my laptop, which is pretty baller. I couldn't open it, and it took a really long time. So you'll be fine with file sizes. I wouldn't worry about it.
That also means the one consideration that I would make as a suggestion is if you're putting files and you're leaving them on the machine, make sure you name your files something logical that you can find later. Don't just name it Untitled 1, Untitled 2, because you'll never remember what that means.
I would also I would add the bit that you're using onto the file name, because you won't have a clue. if it's something you put in like 3 months ago, So
If you have the storage on the controller, is there like a browse, or is it just always one big list in that drop down?
It's just a big drop down list for
Okay.
at least for now. But so if you're using this and something makes sense that you wish you had, go to the forum and there's like suggestions, something.
Oh, there's a forum?
Yeah, there's a forum. forum.onefinitycnc.com.
Okay.
That's the forum. But I know there's like a suggestions or tell us how to improve or something. I think one for hardware and one for software. So go to there and be like, hey, I would love to see this, and they want to make it better for you. That's for sure. They've added a bunch of stuff that I wanted. So
I'll make some suggestions.
Yeah.
From I write my design and build web pages for a living, and this interface makes me kind of cringe.
Yes. Well, they started out with the BuildBotix one, and they did what they could, I guess. So, yeah, this whole jogging over here on the side didn't exist. It was circles on a different tab. This is a miles of an improvement over what did exist for the touchscreen.
Yeah.
So, on the computer, you can see your file over here. If I'll double click it, or no, I'm sorry, I need to push the big thing. You can see what your file will look like. This does not show up on the touch screen. It's a limitation of the Raspberry Pi thing in there displaying over HDMI. So you'll only be able to see this if you plug it into a computer or you see it on your phone.
So probably a 3D render due to the web browser the Raspberry Pi uses can't render the 3D plugin.
It uses Chromium, I think, but on there it doesn't show up. So
yeah, that's typical for Raspberry Pi.
Yeah. So if you want to see what each file looks like, you can see it loaded a different one. You need to go onto your computer and log in and see it. But each button, like this button here, shows the end mill, which is just a cone. And this, when I'm talking about zeroing Z, like I want the beginning of this file where my bit is going to start right down here where this cone is. So if I set my 0 up at the top corner of the material, it would cut up to the top right and it wouldn't cut my material. So when you're zeroing, you have to remember how you saved your file. And this file was saved at the bottom left, and that's usually typical of most files. Bottom left is usually a good guess if you didn't know.
Will the machine stop you from hurting yourself or hurting the machine? In other words, for this file, I'm assuming this is it looks like it's about 12 by 12 or something like that, inches.
I can't remember, something like that.
But if you zeroed on the top right, and then you tried to set this file as the file you want the machine to cut, it's not going to have enough space to run it because the machine's not big enough.
Well,
or if it's like 24 by 24, if you set your 0 to top right, there isn't enough space on the machine to go 24 by 24 in the other direction.
Exactly.
Will it stop you?
If you homed it first, it would show up. It will error. All these will turn red. I don't know.
Right.
I honestly don't know if you played it, it would still go, or it's smart enough to say something is wrong, you're over, it's not going to work. I think the latter, but it will definitely show you up here if the machine, let me just do that real quick. I'm going to whip up a file in Vectric and just make it like 100 inches by 100 inches. I'll hit OK, and then I'll just do a line here.
So just so you know, we're still seeing the web interface.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay.
That's the only problem with switching to apps.
Yeah. You don't need to see what I'm doing. I'm just making just a line, a straight line. And I'm making it, oops, I didn't make it humongous. I'm making this humongous. So it would definitely be over on the machine. I'll name it big. And you can see, so I'll click open, and this one's named Big, and it's gigantic. And there you go. No fit, no fit. See how it's red?
Cool.
It's just too big, so it may, I can still click the start button, and I don't really want to because I haven't homed anything and I might ram stuff in, but it'll definitely show you, at least in red up here or pink, that it doesn't fit. You're too big. So it gives you, that's more than most CNCs will give you. Usually you just click the button and it's going to try to go. So down below it shows you all the G code if you want to know all the G code. I don't find that very useful because I don't really look at it. The only thing I looked at it for me was spindle speed when I had my spindle connected. So this one button right here, you can download this to either the USB or in this case, my computer. So if I wanted to download the big file, I just downloaded it by clicking here. So you can go back and forth. If I wanted to delete that big file, I'd click this delete button. And it gives me 3 options: cancel, all, or selected. So if I click cancel or delete G-code all, it would delete everything that's saved on the controller. Delete it all.
That seems like something you wouldn't want to do from the normal interface.
Yeah. So I just want to select the one that I have selected, which is big, and I'll hit select, and it deleted that one. So now the only ones left are the probe, and which came with the controller. I don't know what that is. I guess a test for them. And then my Steelers logo. But you can see up here, you can see where it switches remaining. So this one is apparently a 1 minute and 58-second job. And this one is a 15 minute and 43-second job. So it gives you days, hours, minutes, seconds. So it lets you know. And once you're running it, it'll show the ETA. It'll actually show me the time of day. And sometimes the day, if it's a different day, of when it will finish. So not saying you should ever do it, but if you leave your machine running and walk away, you'll know when to come back and get it.
And that's assuming the time zone is set correctly in the settings.
Yeah. The other thing you'll need to know is velocity and feed. So this Steelers G-code was made with 100% or 100 millimeters a minute for the feed rate, and velocity is what it's actually reaching. So this controller has something like printers have the jerk and the S-curve.
Mm-hmm.
This one has that too. So when it goes into the corners, it's going to slow down and then ramp up as it's going faster. Just try to save your bit, save chip out, and make it smoother. So in the corners, it'll go lower than what your feed rate is. So it actually shows you what it's hitting at that very second and then what its target is. And then
is that a function of the machine or a function of the G-code?
The function of the controller.
The controller software.
Yeah, you can't change that G-code. You can change that in the controller if you want to turn that off or make it less or make it more. Those settings are wide open, which is really nice. But I've never messed with it, and I've never needed to.
You have the ability to speed up, increase the feed rate while it's running?
No, that's not in there,
Okay.
unfortunately. I know it's a setting they want to add. They just couldn't get it done in time for release.
Okay.
So that's high up on their list because I said, this needs to be high up on your list. So
they've done an amazing job, especially coming from a pre-order kind of thing and then getting all the machines out the door pretty much on time. That's amazing by itself.
They're actually a week early.
Yeah.
They shipped all of August on Friday. So they shipped a week beforehand, which is amazing. So the speed here, that's going to be showing you the RPM if you have a spindle connected or if you have a laser. Did any of y'all get a laser or a spindle?
I ordered the laser.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. So the speed for when you connect the laser, usually the router shows an RPM, and for the laser, it'll go from 0 to 255, and that's power, but just with G-code, I guess that's how it showed. So 255 will be 100% power, and 0 will be 0% power. So that will only be relative if you plug in a spindle or a laser. MIDI or MDI.
That's a hex It's a hex thing. It's measuring the power of the laser in hexadecimal.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I didn't know what it was.
That's the 255. That's the standard way of.
Okay. MDI is where you can manually send your own G code. I've only ever used it to test my spindle to make sure it'll hit the right stuff. But if you don't know G code, and you'll never use this tab. Messages will give you any messages that happened. These are really unreadable to a normal user. Like, I don't know what any of this stuff means. It's just like if you hit an error and you have a problem, you can send this error in and say, hey, this is the error it's giving me. What's the problem? So, and I can clear that because I don't know what it is. Indicators will show you like what all is going on with the controller. You can see down here in my measurements, I have 34.4 volts input. My motors are at 0.41 amps. Temperature inside is 21 Celsius, stuff like that. If you get a breakout board, any of y'all ordered that or plan on getting a spindle?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
ordered it.
Okay. This will show you where to plug it in. That's pretty much it. You only use 2 of these connectors to do the spindle. So that's where you can see if it's plugged in or not. And then inputs, one thing I have is a probe, and it has, like all the other ones are empty circles, and this one has a circle with a plus in it, which means my probe is plugged in.
Is that the Onefinity probe, or you're using your probe from the Shapeoko?
I have the Onefinity probe. When I sold the Shapeoko, I sold the probe with it.
I'm sorry. My apologies. I didn't realize you had sold the Shapeoko.
All right, well, I gave it to my brother-in-law.
Oh, cool.
If you touch the probe with, I don't know if this will work. Oh, I have a bit in there. So one thing you can figure out is if you touch the probe to it, it should turn to a negative green, the probe button.
Yeah, looks like
I can't see if it is. I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one way to test your probe. Like, oh, is it hooked up right? Before you try to probe and it's not hooked up right and it destroys something. Because if you try to probe and for some reason the connection doesn't work, the machine will just keep going down, 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 down. It won't stop. So I always check my probe before I use it, just to double check everything's working right. As long as that turns, the connectivity is there, it's going to stop and probe correctly. So
have you had any issues with the probe moving, since it kind of goes from the top right instead of the bottom left?
No, nothing. I like that too, because if for some reason your probe doesn't make that connectivity, I have had this on the Shapeoko where it goes the opposite way. I've snapped bits because it just kept going and the bit snaps and there's nothing to stop it. So the guy who made tricletra probes, he's been in the business for a really long time. He wrote the G code for that probing sequence, and he explained it really well. If you haven't checked out the forums, he wrote a really long explanation of
I did
why
see
he
that.
does it that way.
Yeah.
But I haven't had it move at all. So let's see. So on the left we have settings. So this is where you can change your units from metric to imperial. Then if you provided your own probe, you'd put in those dimensions. Or if you get the Onefinity probe, some people really, really care about 0.001 dimensionally. I don't care. If I cut out a Arkansas state sign, nobody cares if it comes out 0.001 off. But if some people care about their probe, because every probe is a tad bit different, you can measure it and put in the exact dimensions of your probe here. If you have a different probe, you can put in your other probe. That's the beauty of this, where they allow you to put in whatever you want. So you would put in, your X dimension, your Y dimension, your Z dimension.
I mean, the probe is in some ways setting the precision of the machine.
Right.
And if you're the biggest time where you're going to need precision to be a factor is getting 2 pieces to fit together. For sure.
Or if you're making aluminum parts often, I can totally see that. For me, I haven't had an issue, but if you want it to be super exact, this is where you would change it. So
perfect.
You can change how fast it seeks. how fast it goes down and up to find the position. So that's fast seek and slow seek. I just leave it there. I don't see a reason why you would want to change it. These are like, since Josh, you're familiar with 3D printings, this is the start of the G code, this is the end of the G code, and this is how it runs on a tool change. 99% of users will never change any of this. I haven't changed it either. So that S-curve, you have something called the cornering speed that's here. So this is a number you can just mess around with and get it. This is basically how do I want my machine to run for me. So that's a setting you can mess around with and find out if you like it. I've left it as default and everything has run just fine. So if you are going to put your motors backwards than the way they suggest, where your motors are in the front and that wire that goes across the X is going to be in the back, you're going to go into motors here, and you're going to go to, you can see how many settings you have for the motors.
Wow.
You'll go to the Ys, which is motor 1 and motor 2, and you will reverse them. You'll click this little reverse button, and you got to remember to hit save up here in green. And then you'll go to this Y, the slave, and you click reverse and hit save up here for that. So that's all you need to do if you want to flip those rails around and have the motors in the front and the cable going across the back. But do remember that if you do that, the monitor is made to mount on the end of the rail, and it won't mount on the back side because that's where the motors go. So just a heads up. The other thing in here is the homing. Not everywhere is the same as Canada. So they set it up as best they could for Canada, temperature, humidity deal. So you may be in a different climate. I'm in Arkansas and it seems to work perfectly fine. I haven't had a problem with it. But if you have an issue with homing and for some reason it's trying to detect before it actually hits something on the end, you're going to change the stall volts first. You're just going to lower that by like 0.1, so maybe like 1.9. And remember to click save up here on the green save button, and see if that works. So it's kind of like a play with these numbers to get it dialed in for your environment. They have in their manual, they write what all these things do and what you should do. So just check that out. But that's one thing that you may want to change. I haven't changed any settings at all from what they've given me. So
That's a good thing.
yeah, it's worked perfect so far. So Barry, for tool, you're gonna be the only one using this for now. You're gonna, when you get your laser, you're gonna click on this tool type and you're gonna add a PWM spindle. So you're gonna fake like you have a spindle, but it's actually the laser. And these are the settings that you would put in. Actually, I haven't even configured it for the laser, but they'll have this page with the configuration up if they haven't already. I don't really know, but this is where you'd put your laser settings.
Okay.
If y'all do get a spindle eventually, you would add it here. You can only have the spindle or the laser up at one time. So Barry, if you got a spindle and you had a laser, you would have to change this back and forth from the laser to the spindle. So I have this spindle, the Wan Wang, I think is how you pronounce it. And then you would change the settings in here to make your spindle work. So let's see, that's pretty much all that's in that setting. It's spindle and laser. The IO, this is for the e-stop. Even though it says disabled, you do have 2 e-stops, one up here. This is just a software e-stop. You can touch that and it will stop the motors from running, but it'll keep the software going. But if you ever have something like screw up, if you click it, you can see it's flashing orange. And if I click it again, it's back to normal. So that kind of like resets the system, the soft reset in the software. The big e-stop on the controller, if you push that, that's wired directly to the power supply. You'll kill all power. So either one of those. But there's no, this e-stop is for when if you hooked one up to the breakout board. But Onefinity has added this one and the other one, so you'll never have this one on, I don't see. Probe, this one is where there's two different ways to plug it in, but I guess they send you it plugged in a certain way. So normally open. This is, if you didn't have a probe, you'd have disabled and you'd hit save. If you have a probe normally open, I think you could just leave that normally open and it wouldn't make a difference. Outputs, these are those load button plugs on the back of the controller, if you've seen the picture of that. There's two people are wondering what it does. I don't know what it does, and this is what you would configure it for. I don't know what they do, so I can't help you with that.
I imagine they're set up for future.
Possibly.
If you have I/O, the other thing you potentially would want to add is a fourth axis.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know anything about any of that. So
Yeah, that's the other reason I ordered the breakout board, because I had assumed that it'll either be used for a spindle or fourth axis.
it definitely is used for a spindle. That's the only way to do it. I don't know about fourth axis though, so I can't help you with that. Firmware, you can check if they have anything out. I should just have that automatically checked. You can upload it. If you're offline, you can put the firmware onto a USB stick and then upload it from here. Configuration. So that is like all the motors and all these numbers that are in here. Everything that's there is this configuration. So if I wanted to save the configuration that works, like if I wanted to save this default one, I'd click backup and it just downloaded down below. If I want to restore that, I'd click restore and then find that file, double click it, and now all my settings are back in. So like if you guys were messing around and you wanted the velocity lower or the acceleration higher or whatever, and that worked for you, go to general and back up your configuration and call it like Josh's settings.
Yep.
And then if you ever had a problem, I think they just uploaded this to the forum, like the default configuration. You could just click restore and upload it, and you're back to factory settings. Right. And then debugging is like the log. If they ever asked you, hey, send in the bug report, you would click this and send it in. Cheat sheet shows you some of the G-code stuff. This is just like, hey, what does G0 do? It tells you. And then help just takes you to their contacts. So that's pretty much the board itself. Any questions? Anything you want to know? No. Does it all make sense? Craig, you have a confused look on your face the whole time.
No,
taking it all in.
All right, so and it all seems pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Like I'm saying, once I get my hands on it, I think it'll have.
Yeah, it's kind of sucks. Yeah, it kind of sucks that it's, hey, let me show you this. It'll make more sense when you get it. If you plug in, if you have a USB camera, and I would show you, but I'm using it so you can see me. All you do is USB plug it in. That's it. There's no setting up, and the camera would show up here. And if I click on it, it makes it bigger. So you can aim it however you want it. You can, not only on a computer, you can also do it on your phone or tablet. Anything that has a web browser that's connected to your local network, you can type in this IP address and it will show up. Apple is not showing the webcam, and I don't know if it shows this the preview either. I think that's a limitation within Apple's settings, like their privacy settings or their software settings. So you can't view the camera. Android, I'm pretty sure you can. So if you have an Android thing, it'll show you all of that. So
I wonder if that's just a setting in your settings. Like you have to actually go into settings and enable.
No, it's Apple's limitation.
Interesting.
Yeah. At least from what I have figured out. I hope you can prove me wrong because it would be nice. But anything you want me to
Apple's
show
really
you
bad
on
about that from an app development standpoint. They're not consistent about they let certain people's software do certain things and other
Right.
people they don't.
Well, see, and this is just web-based, so I'm just using Safari. And, you know, I've tried it in Google, but it's still using probably some sort of Safari on Apple, but it doesn't work. So do you want to see the machine at all? I don't know if there's like a countdown timer on how much time I have left.
Your meeting just got upgraded to be unlimited right before you hit the 45-minute timer. So we're already almost at an hour.
Oh, how did it get upgraded?
When you have a new account, they usually upgrade your meeting automatically the first 5 to 10 times you do it.
Okay, sweet. Well, that's good. Do you want to see it cut or load a file and all that?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
All good? We can cut the let's see, can you see me again?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I need to move my camera here. All right. Go in. There we go. Okay. So I mounted my screen up here.
That new case came out awesome, Ben, by the way.
Thank you. That was a lot of work.
What size extrusion did you use?
They're 1010.
1010s?
Yeah. So this is the machine. This screen doesn't always match up with exactly what you did over there on a computer. So sometimes it'll have like that old thing that just popped up. If you have the joystick, which is amazing, not just to sell it, but like so many times I'm in here moving around wanting to get something exact. It's so easy to use the joystick in here. The joystick will move with the thumbsticks. This left one will do left and right, back and forth. The right one will do up and down.
Okay.
And then the buttons here will do speed of how fast it goes. Yellow is the fastest. Red is medium. A is pretty slow. And then X is like, I can't see anything, move slow. If you hold one of these buttons up here, can't remember. It stops the other axes from moving.
Oh, I see. So you're not moving everything at once by accident.
Say what?
So that you're not moving everything at once by accident.
Yeah, right. Yep. So if I'm holding in the right thumbstick or the right trigger, if I try to move it right and left, it won't go right and left. But if I let go, it'll go right and left. So if I only want to mess with the X, it'll go that way. I think this will probably do the opposite. Yeah, the left one does the opposite.
For Barry and Craig, just so you know, the controller that he has in his hand, they sell from Onefinity, but it's also available on Amazon for about $15 less.
Yes, for sure. Or you can use whatever controller you already have in the place, because I tried the Xbox controller. As long as it's wired, it works. The PlayStation works, but the fastest setting doesn't work. I don't know, that's weird. I have a Logitech one that's wireless. It looks like this. That one works too. So anything you have that has like a receiver that can plug in USB will work.
Right.
That's pretty much what I found. So
it has to have the little dongle receiver thing.
yes. Yeah. If it doesn't have a dongle, it will not work.
Yeah.
So not that you have to have a controller, because I can clearly control it from the screen, and that was the point of the screen. So, but so right now I don't have anything homed. I don't think I do. No, I hit the reset button and it forgot all of my homing and stuff. So I want it to home. So like right now, if I jog it, let me get rid of this one because I'll keep picking it up. If you try to jog and you don't have anything homed, It just tries to keep going. It's not a big deal. The motors can handle it, but I don't want it to constantly do that. So if you try to jog beyond its limits on the screen, it will show a pop-up. No, it doesn't. Never mind. It'll just keep going. It does the same thing. So we want to home it first, which will bring it to the front. So if I click home, I'm just going to home everything. It homes the Z first, even though I hit the button that says do all. It just doesn't in succession.
Yeah. Most 3D printers do the same thing. They home different axes all. They always home Z first, and then they do X, then they do Y. They never do it all at the same time.
Yeah. For some reason it didn't do Y there. Now it's doing Y. It's still not doing Y. Oh, I might have saved the setting to be different on the Y motor. Of course, like any live, like my other live, anytime I show people what's going on, it didn't work correctly.
Always how it happens.
Let me try it again. There it goes. It had the old setting. See, I changed that voltage just a little bit, and it didn't home. So messing around with that voltage for homing to get it right. But now it's homed. You can see, I don't know if you can see. It's hard to see.
Yeah, we can't see the screen.
Does that help at all?
Yeah, you can see it now.
Yeah, so this is what it will look like normally when you're home. So I have the green X, the Y is green, and the Z is over, but that's normal. So that's what it looks like when it's homed. So that's homing. It brought it all the way up here. So now if I try to take the controller as fast as it'll go and try to run it off, it won't. It'll stop. And if I try to run left, it'll stop too. So, and I haven't installed my hose boom in here yet, so I'm pinching that. So let me just recut the Steeler thing because I have that already loaded. It'll be faster. I like to use right now, if you're doing something where the edges are just trash, like the Steelers part, I cut the circle out in the center. I like to use just brad nails straight into the wasteboard. And this is where I like the controller because I'm in here moving stuff around, trying to get the rail out of my way. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Make sure I don't have any other ones in there. Okay.
Now, are you using plastic brad nails or just regular ones?
No, those are just metal brad nails. And if you run, now these are 18 gauge.
Mm-hmm.
So if you run into them, you're just going to cut them. They won't even notice. So this is some waste from when I tried to cut panels to fit inside. Doesn't work. So I wasted a bunch of money and wood and time. We'll do it this way. So some of the wood bends, like plywood is the worst. It bends. It's going to happen. So if this plywood is curving like this in a U shape now, so if I put it down and I brad nail the corners, the middle will stay down. If I did it the other way and brad nailed the corners, the center is going to be popping up. So that's why I chose to do it this way. And since I'm cutting out a circle, I don't care. My material could be like this. Theoretically, it would be fine. But I'm going to put it on like this and just shoot a brad nail in every corner. And that works good. And then, so this is where, you know, we click the home button, but this is where we're going to 0. So you're going to move the machine, and the Steelers logo, remember that when I showed you the little icon was in the bottom left. So I need to make the bit come to the very bottom left corner of the material, not only in X and Y, but also in Z. It needs to be like just kissing the top of this thing. So if you didn't buy the probe, you don't need a probe to make this work. For many years, I didn't have a probe. I just did it by eye. So this is where the controller is just way faster than the screen. But I'm going to move this over.
Mainly because you can hold the button down.
Do what?
Mainly because you can hold the movement button down.
Oh, yes, yes. If you hold the button up
tap.
here, it acts like a right click. So that's something I also suggested to him, but please put that in their forum and suggest that. So I can manually look like this, try to get it at the corner. Again, since the circle is smaller than this piece of wood, I don't need to be very exact. I could be on the X and Y. I can be over a little to the right, a little to the left, a little forward, backwards, but you know, close enough. So I would set my 0. I'd come up here and I'd push 0, either the 0 all because I have my Z touching the top and my X and Y are all where I want it. So I can 0 all, or if I didn't want to do my Z yet, but I knew that's where I wanted my X and Y, I can just touch X and Y. That's a 0, that's a 0. And then I can do Z later. I can do Z, like if you're doing a 3D carve and this is stage 2 and you've already cut off where you would 0 over here, I can move it around to wherever else I wanted to do it and then 0 from here. Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm. They're mutually exclusive.
Yeah. So I'm gonna well, I guess I don't need to unhome it. I'll just re-0 it. If you have the probe, did y'all order the probe? I don't know how many of you have gotten the probe.
Yes, I did.
You did? Josh, Craig, did you get the probe?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all gonna use the probe anyways. So the probe allows you to plug it in this way. It's just a banana cable, or this way. Doesn't really make a difference. And it has this notch in the back. You can see that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Has a notch in the back. So when you're probing X, Y, and Z, you're getting the material. Let me get a piece of wood. You make sure the material is in that notch. And it'll auto correct for the difference that you're missing here. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If you're probing just the Z on the top of the material, you put the whole thing on the top. Okay?
Makes sense.
But we're doing the corner. So I'm going to slide this up into that notch. Of course, if your material is thinner than that gap, like if your material is thinner than this lip, then you can't use the probe for X and Y because it would assume the probe height instead of the actual piece of the wood. But this is 1/8 inch and it fits fine. So you put your material on and you shove it all the way in the corner, and then you make sure, and I've done this a billion times.
Can you rotate the camera down a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
How's that?
Perfect.
They're good?
Yep.
So make sure that this piece, that magnetic piece, is on your cullet. So this is shoved in all the way. And then the probe has a circle back in the back corner. That's where we want to aim the bit to go.
How exact does it need to be?
I'm sorry, my speakers are over here. But
No worries. How exact does your positioning need to be in that circle?
not very. I've been a little bit outside of the circle, and it's been fine. It's going to move so far in one way. If you're not far enough, it's going to come down and hit the probe. So you'll see it here in a second. I'll get it in closer so you can see it really well. Or I'll get it in that close.
It's great.
Yep, that's good.
Is that good? So you need to be a certain distance from here because it's only going to probe so far. And if it doesn't go all the way down, it'll error out. So I like to get it pretty close. So I'm like there.
Do you have to tell it? Do you have to tell it the bit diameter at all, or is that part of the?
Yes, you do. Let me show you up here. I wish that I had enough. How is that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So we're going to go down here, and I'm going to probe X, Y, and Z. I'm going to do all 3 corners. So if I touch it, it asks me the bit diameter.
Okay.
I'm going to hit cancel because I don't remember what this is in metric. It's a 1/4 inch bit. So I switched my units from metric to imperial, hit probe, and I already have a 1/4 inch in there, 0.25. So as soon as I hit set, it's going to start moving. There is no, like, okay, here we go. It's just as soon as you hit the set button, it'll start probing. So let me change the camera angle back. Is that good?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So I have my proper, so this enter probe tool information diameter, that's how big this bit is. So just make sure you have that set right or it's not going to calculate the math right. So this is a 0.25 inch bit. So I'm going to hit set and it's going to move down and touch it. It's going to raise up and touch it even slower the second time to get a more exact one. And you see how far over it moved? That's how far you have to be off of that circle.
Okay.
And then it does touches the back twice, and then it touches the other side twice. And it raises up, and it goes over to the X and Y point now. So this is the correct X and Y, and it just, 1.231 inches away from my material is where the probe is set to. And I can see that because of, you see the Z, 1.231 inches. I wonder what that is in metric, something around 31.275. Not a round number. I don't know why they chose it, but that's what it is. So does that all make sense for probing?
Yep.
Yeah, Ben, how does probing diameter work when you're using a V-carve bit?
That's a good question. I haven't used a V-carve bit with the probe.
For my old piece CNC, you always had to use a straight bit to do the X and Y.
Yes,
Okay.
that's the answer. Yes,
Okay.
you have to use some sort of normal bit to do the X and Y, and then you'll do the Z with just the probe Z. And the probe Z shouldn't ask you. Let's try that because I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember what it was. I'll click probe Z up here because it'll be the exact same Z. We'll just reprobe it. I'm sorry that if you can't see that.
Okay.
Does that work? I'll click probe Z, and it doesn't ask me, and it's moving down and probing right now. It's going to be wrong now because it's going to assume the bottom of the deal. But that's what you would do with a V-bit. You would just do the X and Y.
Yeah, straight bit first, and then just do probe Z with the V-bit.
Exactly, right. I've got to reprobe now. All right, you'll watch probing twice.
And I know one thing, when you do the, on my old CNC, when you do put in the bit size, that's not the shank size, it's the actual bit size.
That's correct, right. Yep.
And make sure you have that little magnetic thing, because I've already drove it down into the probe.
Oh, yeah. Yep, my carbide probe has had a lot of marks in it. So, and that's why I like the way Charlie comes this way, because you'll save a bit. So, and that's it for probing. So that's literally all I would do. I'd come back to the screen. Once you get your material set the way you want, you'd come back to the screen and we'd load whatever file. I don't have a USB stick out in the shop, but if I click load, I don't know how well you can see. that. This
Yep.
is what the interface kind of looks like. And it's already looking for a USB file. So I'm just going to hit cancel because I don't have that. I have the Steelers one already loaded. So if I click play, it's going to get really loud, and then we'll just watch something cut. And I can pause it so we can talk if we have any other questions.
That the load is specific to the USB. You can't browse like a network share at all.
No, it doesn't have like OneDrive or Google Drive or anything like that. It's specific to the USB.
Okay.
So that is something I have also mentioned. Hey, I want to load files on the Google Drive. Can we do that? But again, hey, if you think of that, throw it in the forum and add it to the list of what you want them to do. So
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
gonna
do that through your computer though, right? So if you're loading it from there, you can pull it from a Google Drive or a Dropbox.
absolutely, yeah. But you have to be connected to your local network to be able to do that. So if you went, now I haven't figured it out, but if you went to like your office and you wanted to load a file onto it, you wouldn't be able to log into the controller because you have to log in via a local network. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So here is everything. I'm just going to let it run. You might want to turn your sound down. Although the sound is, I have my Wi-Fi, the thing on my body, but this is the other thing you'll need to know is what you're going to set your router at. So you set the router speed, the spindle speed, which is your router from the dial on the machine. So I'm just going to keep it around like 4 for this one. And I'm going to turn it on. All right, y'all ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that too loud for you? Pretty quiet.
Don't
I
even
don't
hear
hear
it.
it at all.
Okay, good. So
Here-
I'm just going to hit the play button up here. And it's going to move, and it's going to start cutting. So
Ben, I noticed you don't have your quote-unquote Myers wasteboard on there.
no, because I just finished this, and I had an extra MDF piece to just try to cut stuff. And now I'm making the Myers Woodshop version 2, and that's after I finish the enclosure complete and shoot that video, I'll do a video on the wasteboard.
But I was just thinking that the fence that goes along with the wasteboard, you're probably gonna have to adjust it for the different position of the touch probe, right?
It will, no, it should still work the same.
Okay. I know I'd like the old one you had a cutout for the touch probe. Does it work the same?
That's a good question. I don't know. I got rid of the machine before I had the touch probe. I think it's about the same size. I think it's just thinner than the
okay.
the Carbide 3D one. So they feel like exactly the same X and Y dimension. So
Yeah.
let me show you. Can you still hear me when I'm over here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Your enclosure is doing a good job of cutting out the sound.
So that's good. So that's the machine that's still cutting. So if I come up here to the screen, you can kind of see, you know what I'm going to do actually? Instead of that, I'm going to show you as I'm logged into the computer. Hang on one second. I'll share my screen. All right, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
So you can see it running right now. You can see the positions are all changed. Everything's green up here. We can see it scrolling through the G code. You can see the remaining time. It's a countdown. We got 13 minutes and 38 seconds left. It's going to finish today at 11:34. So my time is correct. The line of the G code it's going and the progress. And you can also see that my feed rate and what it's actually hitting. See, most of the time it's hitting 25, 40, but sometimes it's not when it's going in the corners or doing something round or something like that. So, and if I pause it, it's holding, and you can hear that it's not moving. I'll show you. Can you still see me in the screen, or
Yeah.
just you can see the machine too?
Yeah, if you click on participants, you should be able to see the camera view, not the shared screen view. So I'm looking at mine. I can see both views.
Okay, great, good. So you can see the machine is stopped, and if I hit play again, it just goes. So it's going to cut the rest of it. So you can stop it and pause it and stuff. Of course, you'd have to go in there and turn off the router. If you had a spindle, it stops the spindle too. I'm pretty sure. I think that's what it did. I don't quite remember, but yeah. But that's pretty much it. I don't know any other questions, anything else I can show you?
Not at this point, but this has been really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Do you want me to complete the carve, or do you want me to show you what happens when I click stop? This is waste to me, so I don't care either way.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay. I'll hit stop. Holding user stop. I'm going to go turn the router off. And that's it. So there's no way to like start it up again from that spot unless you knew how to edit G-code and find whatever G-code you were at and delete all that, like the beginning parts, and then I'll start right where you left off. I've never done that in the 4 years I've had a CNC, and hopefully you never have to. But yeah, so that's it. That's all I know what to show you, unless you have any other questions.
Well, I mean, it also, I mean, you could potentially do it relatively easy because on the right side, it's showing you the line number of G-code that it's on.
Absolutely. Well,
So if you hit stop and you know you're on line 870, you can delete from 870 up, create a new file, and it would start.
Theoretically, yes. I should try that one day and see if it actually works. But end mills are expensive.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I can imagine if you're looking at it from the other perspective, if the material you're using is expensive,
oh, 100%.
you might not want to do a whole nother piece of material.
Absolutely. The only other thing you could do is just start the carve completely from start. That's kind of gonna suck, but at least you'll know it'll come out correctly. So those are two options, neither of which I have done before. So yeah.
On the Makita, does it what speed do you run it at? Is there a
I'm generally around a 3.5, 4 is
Okay.
I'd say the majority of what I'm cutting at. Yeah. On the DeWalt, I was at 3, and this one has a greater range. So it was like 3.5, 4.
Okay, thank you.
Usually most things that are online that give you like G-code simulators and stuff, they're calculating the spindle to be around 18,000 RPM. So that's what I usually keep it at. You can kind of hear it. Once you cut enough, you can hear like, ooh, that sounds like it's struggling. My first thought would be to go in and turn the router up a little faster. You know, by a 0.5%, or I don't know what it is. If I'm going from 3 to 4, I'd go to like 3.5, and then you can kind of hear if it's working correctly, because you should have that nice clean sound, not a struggling kind of, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So anything else? I think that's most everything. Now you just got to get the machine and cut.
For Tuesday.
Tuesday, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I hope that is true. I think Andrew.
Mine said Friday, but I got an email this morning that said it just went through customs in Chicago.
Oh yeah, so maybe it'll be faster, because mine came 2 days faster than what it said, and then I know Andrew's. I talked to him and did this with him too, and his showed like a week, and it came the very next day. But that was, I think, through DHL. The customs. So one of my boxes was opened by customs, and stuff was kind of moved around. So just a heads up, it may not be like they improperly packed things. Customs opened one box. There were 3 boxes, and they opened one. So
Right, but I'm sure that customs branch, as soon as they start seeing a bunch of these machines flow through, they're going to stop looking in every box.
I would hope so. Make
Yeah.
stuff go ship way faster. But yeah. So, is there any other thing that I can think of to tell you? Oh, it does ship the controller with the e-stop plug. Well, should be shipped with the e-stop plugged way down. I thought I was undoing it. I was not twisting it hard enough. So twist it really hard, and you'll feel it snap up. So it won't
Not every
turn on.
e-stop button's the same.
Right. So if it doesn't turn on when you flick the switch, check your e-stop first. And they are checking everybody's 220 and 110 now too. There are 2 holes on the top of the controller. For Barry, this may affect you. Did you order a laser, or did you already have a laser?
No, I ordered it. It's coming in September sometime.
Okay. There are 2 holes on top of the controller, and I'll show you.
Yeah, I'm planning on ordering the laser once I get the machine set up.
Okay. Yeah. So the controller has 2 holes with two bolts. That's to bolt this JTech laser part onto it. You don't have to keep it there, but that's what they're intended for. All right, guys. Anything else? Any
Thanks, Ben.
final questions?
Yeah. Thanks so much, Ben.
Nope.
Really appreciate your time.
Barry, you're muted.
You
So if you had a question, I couldn't hear it.
No, sorry, just saying this. Thank you and appreciate your time.
Oh, yeah. No problem. Just reach out if you need anything,
Yep.
and I'll see what I can do. So, and check out their
Okay.
forum,
I'm definitely gonna pick that up.
forum.onefinitycnc.com. So get active on there. That's their official deal. So,
All right.
Awesome. Thanks,
all
Ben.
right.
Yep, thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. See you later.
Take care.
Thanks.